Hello, and welcome to Wellness Wednesday with 3W. Wellness Wednesday is sponsored by 3W Medical for Women, a nonprofit medical clinic offering free of charge or low-cost reproductive health services to women in the Seattle area, regardless of income or insurance status. 3W does not profit off of the reproductive health choices women make. The information shared in this podcast is the opinion of the speaker or speakers. Medical information is not intended as individual medical consultation, but for general education only. Always consult your own health professional for personalized advice regarding medical decisions. And if you're in the Seattle area, consider making an appointment to consult with us. I'm Helen Nguyen, CEO and co-founder of 3W Medical for Women and the host of today's podcast. Hi, Wellness Wednesday listeners. This is Helen Nguyen from 3W Medical for Women. Thank you so much again for joining us on this podcast episode. Today, we're talking about a topic that's very near and dear to my heart. I feel like I'm talking about it all the time now that I've been going through this. We're here to talk about adoption and the process. And I'm going to share with you all my personal process and journey towards adoption. As well as I have a dear friend here. Her name is Anna. She and her husband adopted their baby girl, Valentina.
Yeah.
How many years now, Anna?
3 years.
God.
Yeah.
That's crazy. Time just flies by. But we're going to just share our experience, and some of it is very similar. Some of it is quite different. But I thought you'd like to hear more about the adoption process because I don't think it's talked about enough. I don't think it's normalized enough. And I really feel like more people who have gone to the process of adoption, we need to talk about it because it's a beautiful thing. It's an important thing that happens in our community and our society today. And hopefully it will encourage more and more people to look into it. And it's not some scary, daunting thing. And I guess I want to just say that it could be. In the beginning, it was very much this scary unknown thing, right? And where do you even start? I don't even know. so anyways, and you've been hearing about my husband and my personal story of infertility and how that led us to and look into adoption. But I wanted to give you another perspective as well, because you and Mark, Anna, you have a biological child.
We do. We have a 9.5-year-old biological daughter.
Oh my gosh, I can't believe she's 9.
Yeah.
That makes me feel really old.
I know, we're hitting double digits in September. And I met you when she was in here.
She was.
Yeah.
She was in your belly. Belly. Yeah. So Anna, let's dive into this.
Sure.
How did you and Mark decide, okay, let's look into adoption?
Yeah.
Where did you guys start?
Oh, man. Well, I think for me, the idea of adoption had been there for a long time. I want to say it started when I was single and I was like young, but really as I'm playing with my kids and their toys, I think in the 80s, like when I was a kid, the idea was planted. I had so many Cabbage Patch Kids, right? That sounds hokey, I know, but they came with like their adoption certificates, and then we had pound puppies that you would adopt.
Yeah,
you know?
yeah.
And so as my kids are playing with their toys now, and they're like, "We're gonna adopt this thing." I'm like, "Oh, okay." So like the seeds were planted a long time ago.
Yes.
I feel like. And then when I was single, my first job out of college I was a family resource coordinator for a birth to 3 program. So we worked with infants and toddlers with developmental delays, and I had to work with some kids who had gone into the foster system, and I had seen them in their sort of a home environment, and then I saw them for some reason or another they ended up with a foster family, and I saw the difference between them being maybe in this like toxic sort of home environment, and then how they flourished and changed in a different environment with a family that was more in tune with them and nourishing to them. No offense to their biological family. It's just, I was a psychology major, right? And we talked a lot about nurture versus nature.
Yeah.
And I just saw this sort of coming to life in front of me. And I thought, wow, that's really amazing that you can affect a child's life. That if we know that period of development is so crucial in the early times. Yeah. And I saw these kids I saw how they maybe just were like stuck inside their own little world, and then placed in the right environment, they flourished and they grew. And I thought, well, that would be so great. I'm Catholic.
Yeah.
I was coming into my faith and as I finished college, and I thought, wow, what a great like way to see sort of marry your faith with your life and to provide a nice stable home for a child that might need one. So so I think the seeds were then they kept being planted.
Yeah.
Mark and I got married, and we of course were like, let's have those babies right away. And that wasn't really in God's plan for us. We had some losses along the way, and so we were like, well, what does this mean for our life, and what are we thinking of? And I approached him and I said, I've always kind of wanted to adopt. How do you feel about that? And so he prayed about it and he thought about it and he said, let's give it a try. Let's see. And so we started the paperwork. We met with a couple of adoption agencies and we started the ball rolling. And then we found out we were pregnant with Mariana, who's my older daughter.
Oh my gosh.
And so we were like, okay, well, let's put this on pause. We had her, the agency that we were working with said, well, there has to be a 2-year age gap between the kids. So you can't, apply right away.
Oh.
And so we sort of put it on hold. And then parenthood, of course,
is encompassing.
It is harder than we thought it would be. And so we didn't revisit the conversation about adoption until our daughter was maybe like 4 or 5. And she was talking about siblings and, infertility was still in the picture, but also adoption is still in our hearts. So we said, well, let's give it a go and see. I mean, this is kind of our thing, right? Let's give it a go and see what happens. And if God doesn't mean for it to happen, then he's going to stop us. And he has stopped us for certain things. But for adoption, it kind of we've put our hat in the ring. We asked around. I joined different Facebook groups and just kind of reached out to people that I knew had adopted and adult adoptees. I asked about their experience. I had friends who had adopted, so I talked to them about their experience. And then I joined Facebook groups to sort of like feel it out and see what that looked like.
Yeah.
And then my husband, Mark, he's a very faithful, wonderful man. And he was like, well, let's go for it and see what happens. And then we got matched with Valentina's birth mom. Okay. And then she came along. So I want to say from start to finish, it took about 9 months.
Wow.
For her. Oh, from when we started to being matched, it was 9 months. And then for her to come home with us, it was probably a little over a year and change.
Wow.
So long story short, from Cabbage Patch Kids to
a physical kid, a real kid named Valentina, who's adorable. So let's back up a little bit.
Sure.
So why did you decide to go with an agency versus a private adoption versus international?
Yeah. So actually that first agency I was talking about before we had Mariana was international. We're looking to adopt from the Philippines.
Okay.
Because my husband and I are both Filipino. So that was something that we looked into. And then when we went back to it, they weren't doing adoptions anymore. So when our older daughter was 4 or 5 and we started looking into it, they weren't doing it anymore. We were like, okay, well, let's see what happens. And so I joined various adoption groups on Facebook. One of them was like a Catholic foster adoptive group. And somebody had mentioned this agency and I was like, okay, well they sound good. And they're not in business anymore, just so but I said, okay, well, we'll talk to them and see how it and we talked to them and it sounded good. So we, threw our hats in the ring and just wanted to see what happened.
Did you kind of shop around or did you just went with that agency because it just felt right? Or
it just felt right. So I think we just went with them. I mean, we had talked initially before we had Mariana, we had looked around to different agencies. But by the time we came back to it 4 years later, it looked a lot different, like who was still around and who wasn't around. And I had heard the stories online of people who had just like adopted privately. So they just sort of advertised themselves and then got themselves matched. I guess I just didn't do too much research. I was like, well, that sounds good. And then we talked to them and we're like, sure, let's give it a try. And then, if it doesn't work, then we'll try someone else. Yeah. So I think we talked to the person who owned it and it sounded good and went with that.
So cool. Yeah. Well, Anna, it was this for me personally, having the ability to reach out to someone like you when we were starting our adoption process was so wonderful and supportive. And I hope you know that I'm so grateful for you always being available to talk to me about that kind of stuff. But we wanted to go private. Yeah. So we did our home study, which is like a whole nother part of the process.
Gosh, the home study.
Home study. Whoa.
Study.
Talk about invasive.
Oh my gosh, invasive. Right?
Yeah. having a stranger, a social worker,
Right.
come into your
All
home,
up in your business.
all up in your business.
In a good way.
Yes, in a good way.
Yeah.
I mean, I get why they had to do it.
Right.
Right. I get it because they don't want to place a child in
Totally.
a place that's not safe. But whoa, that was really nerve-wracking.
Right?
Yeah. I cleaned my house so many times. Are the pillows okay, Steve? And he's like, I don't think they're going to worry how clean the pillows are. I'm like, you don't know that.
I don't think our social worker even went upstairs. I was like, we gotta make everything perfect. And she's like, I trust it's okay. I'm like, oh, you're not even go upstairs and cleaned it.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. So we were like, okay, are we going to go private? Are we going to go agency? And for us, we were like, okay, let's just do the home study. And then fostering was also on the table.
Yeah.
And personally, for me, I just felt I couldn't do it.
Mm.
My husband was very open to it, but I just felt like, and I guess I wanted to ask you that too. You know, why didn't you go the fostering route? Not to say that there aren't children in need in foster care. Oh my gosh, I think there's tons and tons and tons and tons. For me, it was like the thought of a child coming into my home and not being able to keep them.
Right. That's hard.
It was like that stage in my life where I was like, I'm not going to be able to let them go.
Yeah.
And to see our door being kind of a revolving door kind of situation, what I think was just too hard for me. And how about you guys? Was fostering ever on the table?
I mean, I think fostering it definitely was on the table, and it's not out of the realm of possibility for the future.
Awesome.
I feel like when we were setting out to adopt, I think when we had our older daughter and when we got to sort of know her personality as she grew up, we knew that she's a very sensitive kid, and that we didn't think that sort of scenario would be okay with her. Like, she gets attached to things.
Yeah.
And so we thought, for our own family dynamic, maybe not while she's young. Like, maybe when she's older and she can sort of handle that sort of thing.
That's so wise.
Yeah. And I think, with a lot of things with adoption, we talk about home studies, and like, there are a lot of conversations that need to happen between you and your husband, or, a lot of conversations you have to have with yourself on what am I okay with, and there's so many questions that you don't really ask yourself before you have a biological child.
Yeah.
You just have them.
That
one. I mean, we had to go through extra steps, of course, to have our older one, but go NAPRO. But I mean, like, we had to have conversations like what age and what level of disability might we be okay with raising, and how will this affect our family dynamic, and what is our family prepared to take on.
Yeah.
And I've talked to other friends that thought about adopting, and we did domestic. One of our daughters is not the same race as us. There's all these different discussions, and I would talk to other people, and they're like, well, I feel bad to say it, but I don't think I could take that on. I don't think I could take on any level of disability. And I'm like, you know what? You have to be honest with yourself and what your family can take on, because this is, your family. And you also want to provide the best environment for the child too. It's not just, I'm going to buy this kid and bring him home. I have to make sure that this is the best possible environment for them. And if this is not something that we can take on, then we can't. And I think that's okay to say, well, this is what I'm prepared for. Because, I mean, parenthood already has so many unknowns.
Oh,
so many unknowns.
It's a dice throw for the day. You don't know what you're going to get.
It is is dice, exactly. I mean, you never know, even when they're older.
Yeah.
So, I mean, I think that is part of adoption, to have those conversations with yourself and to be real with what is okay, and not feel bad that, you can't adopt all the kids in the world. I mean, we're not all Angelina Jolie, God bless her, but
I wish I was.
I mean, it wouldn't hurt.
Those lips. I mean, like, getting back to what you're saying, that's so true. I mean, and I think that was the helpful part of the home study.
Yeah.
We had a wonderful social worker that we worked with, and she was adopted herself, so she understood from that perspective that whole situation, and she was so gentle and kind, and she was like, you just need to be honest with me.
Yeah.
What can you handle? What would be your ideal situation? Let's write it down, because you don't want to set yourself up for failure, and you don't want to set up this child for failure, thinking that you can rescue every child in the world. So that was really helpful for me. But yeah, just the whole fostering thing, I was like, like you, I think it's still on the table. I think as Max gets older, maybe.
Right.
And I can be a more senior mother. And now I'm the rookie, right? So I have no idea.
It gets pretty tiring when you're 40 though, Helen. So just just FYI.
I'm turning 34 this year, so it's not that far away. But yeah, so you guys went domestic, and your home study allowed you to adopt anywhere in the nation, correct?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
I'm trying to remember. I think we were cleared for anywhere domestically, and I don't remember the ages and things like that. But yeah, that was a process.
Yeah. Did you guys have a website? We put together a whole website, and did you guys do any of that?
We made a website because the agents we were with, they were not in our state; they were in another state. And so they said, it'd be helpful to have our book online just in case any of their expectant mothers wanted to, we also made a book about our family. So we mailed them some books, but then we also had a website. So but we didn't share it publicly because we weren't adopting private, on our own.
Okay.
But we did make one.
Okay. Did you have a Facebook page?
No.
Okay.
No.
Yeah, we were encouraged to do Facebook page and all of that stuff.
I mean, maybe in the future.
Yeah.
If we, it sort of ebbs and flows whether or not we're ready for another one or if we're open to another one. I mean, we're always open to whatever is placed in our laps. But yeah, I mean, after the fact, we had looked into, I mean, there are different routes to take. So there's private, there's agencies, there are consultants. So people who work with a bunch of different agencies. And so that sort of broadens your range. And then there are some consultants that just give you help you promote yourself. And so there are different avenues. So if anybody that's listening, if you're thinking about it, there's so many different avenues to take when adopting. And so we might explore one of those if we decide to adopt in the future. We'll see.
How was the conversation like with Mariana? She
had been praying for a sibling since she was 2, since she was old enough to do it. And so, we were just we try to explain to her very basically what adoption is. And we said, would that be okay with you? You would have a sibling. Yeah, that's fine. And so, she's a very mellow, easygoing kid. And she was super down for it. And then when we were matched with one, and she's like, well, I hope it's a girl. And because we were matched when her birth mother was 10 weeks along. So we didn't know the gender. We didn't know anything.
Okay.
But we were open to it. And so she was jazzed when she found out she was having a sister.
Oh.
Yeah.
They actually kind of look alike.
They do kind of look alike, which is crazy.
Whenever I see their pictures, I'm just like, that is
They both
amazing.
have the same wacky sense of humor, too.
Oh, really?
It's been a very entertaining summer so far.
Oh. So when you got matched and the Valentina's birth mother is in another state.
Yes.
How did that work? How did you guys stay in communication?
We talked on the phone a few times in the beginning, and then she's more comfortable with text messaging. So I sort of just followed her cues, and I was like, what are you comfortable with, and how often do you want to correspond? A lot of the communication was sort of mediated through the agency too. If she was in need of something, then she would tell them, and then they would tell us. But we got to know each other on a personal level mostly through text messages, and that's how we. I don't know if it's semi-open but we're in contact still, and I send her pictures, and that's what she asked for, just pictures every now and then.
Okay.
But yeah, so we just got to know each other over text. That was sort of her jam, and that's how we went. So I just followed her lead.
Did you have to go and meet her multiple times before you got to take Valentina home? Or?
We met her once. So they were across the country, and we went to go meet them maybe she was born 4 months before she was born, just so that she could get to know us and we could get to know her. And we went to an appointment with her and got to see the ultrasound. So that was nice.
Oh, that's awesome.
Yeah. And then the next time we saw her is when Valentina was born.
Wow. Wow. And correct me if I'm wrong, there's no such thing as closed adoptions anymore.
Oh, I don't know.
Okay.
I think the expectant parents or the birth parents can so they're expectant before the placement and they're birth parents after the placement. Lots of adoption terminology nowadays. They can request for it to be closed.
Okay.
So, but that would be their request. I don't think they're as common nowadays, closed adoptions, but I think they can request for it to be closed. Because I've seen some people on the adoption group saying, the birth parents requested for this to be closed. I don't want it to be closed, but this is what they asked for. And so if there's an agency that sort of mediates it, sometimes they can like send stuff to the agencies. So if the birth parent chooses to, they can go see it. But
Yeah.
I think at their request, that everything can be sealed if they want.
Okay. And how, Valentina is getting older now. When do you plan on talking to her about adoption?
It's an interesting thing. I mean, I don't plan to hide it. It's
Yeah.
not something, I mean, she looks like us. So she's African American.
Yeah.
We're Filipino.
Yeah.
We have the same beautiful shade of brown skin, oddly enough.
She's gorgeous.
She's gorgeous.
Gorgeous.
I'm in trouble because both my daughters are gorgeous. My husband's in trouble.
Just keep them at home.
They're still, no problem this last year. They're not gone anywhere. But her hair looks different, and some of her facial features are different. So there are some differences, and sometimes people say things when we go out. But whatever. I have a variety of snarky comments or charitable ones, depending how I feel that day.
Wow.
But it's very interesting. Sometimes they talk about it, and we have books that talk about it. I don't think she's really developmentally there to understand, but she's getting to the age, and so she loves Muppet Babies. And there's a new season of Muppet Babies, and they're talking about how Fozzie, his sister, was adopted. And I was like, okay, well, maybe this is how we're going to start talking about it. So I think just like building blocks and talking about like you were born in somebody else's tummy. She loves you very much. This is not, I want her to understand that this wasn't, it wasn't because she wasn't loved or not wanted, but because these were the circumstances. And there was an abundance of love that placed her from one family to another, that expanded her family network, that brought her to us, that we want to provide all that for her. And so I think it's, with any child, it's a lifelong sort of journey. I know that adds a little extra dimension of her discovering who she is and her place in the world. So I pray for that all the time. But, we have resources. We have other friends who adopted.
Yeah.
Probably when it starts to, if she starts talking about, oh, well, older sister was born in your tummy. Like, I don't intend to shy away from it. I think I'll just follow her lead.
Sure.
And want it to be something she celebrates.
Yeah.
So,
because adoption's nothing to be ashamed of.
No.
It's actually really awesome. It's really
and
awesome.
Historically very common.
Yes. It's everywhere.
It is.
That book that you sent me was so helpful because
it's one of my favorite books.
It's the theme of adoption is everywhere.
Yeah.
Everywhere. And it blows my mind that people don't talk about it more.
Right. I loved how it was like, it's woven in history.
Yeah.
And it's in the blah, blah, blah.
Yeah.
And people did it as a mechanism to like expand their, I don't remember the title of the book. Maybe we can like link it.
Yeah. I don't either. I was upset, so
but it was amazing. And so it really has sort of like, I like how the book talked about how it like expands, like your family has this like, your home is this beacon of belonging, right? And then it just sort of like spins outward. And then like everybody sees that like belonging can be much more than just, well, I had this kid and, which is super beautiful. Like I love both my kids amazingly, no matter how they came to me. But I love that it's like this like outward statement too of like, I was raised in a single parent family. My parents got divorced when I was young and I was raised by my father. I didn't have a mother figure a lot and my friends' mothers like stepped in. Yeah. And they mothered me and it helped me to understand that like your family can be more, like your family circle can be more. And I think that also tinged my idea of, well, these other people loved me as their child. I can love another child as my child.
Yeah.
And then my husband's parents are very sweet and loving. His parents are still together. So I grew up with the one parent. He grew up with both. And they're this beautiful like beacon of love. And they love and accept everybody into their home. And I'm like, wow, that's like, so wow. Great examples of family everywhere and what that can look like.
Well, talking about family, how did your family respond to when you told them, Mark and I are adopting?
I think they were all very receptive. They were very happy all the way around. My dad passed away a long time ago, a year after we got married, so he hasn't actually met any of our kids, but he's, been praying for us.
Yeah.
But so my brother is around. He was pretty jazzed about it.
Yeah.
And, because he gets another niece or nephew.
Another niece.
And then my mother and father-in-law and my sisters-in-law, they were very happy too. I mean, anything we're Filipino. Anything you can do to add to family is great. So
yeah,
everybody was happy.
That's awesome. Yeah, I think Steve's family, they're Irish. They're Irish Americans, especially his mom is 100% Irish, and adoption in the Irish culture is very, very common.
Oh, okay.
So it was like yeah, of course.
Yeah.
Like, that's so cool. Absolutely. Let's do this. Vietnamese culture, I think, we're more, I think as a culture, as a community, we're more introverted people. And then when you get to know us, we're like super loud. We're like a marketplace, right? But I think the idea of adoption and paying for an adoption is a very foreign concept. In Vietnam, it's more like you come out, you walk out of your door, there's a kid under a tree. Okay, that kid needs a mom. I'm going to take them in. And it was like 10th, 12th, 11th child. No big deal. Another mouth to feed. It's not a big deal. So adoption kind of happens sporadically in the Vietnamese culture because there's an abundance of children that needs parents, and we're very loving people, and so we take them in. But the idea of having to pay an agency or pay the government and doing all this paperwork was very foreign for my family. It was like very weird. So I was a bit nervous telling my parents and how they would respond to it. The younger generations in my family were like ecstatic. They were like very, very excited about it. But the older ones, they were like, okay, sure. Is this really something that you guys really want to do? They just kind of like let it unfold. Yeah. And I think when it became a reality, so you said you had like 9 months to a year for Valentina. I had like a month and a half.
Yeah, that's not a lot of lead time.
No lead time.
You should have just showed up with the baby.
Yeah.
Hey, guys, look.
Pretty much. We kind of told them like, hey, this is happening. And they're like, my mom is like the biggest skeptic. She does not believe anything you say until it's actually like in your face kind of situation. So she was like, just hold things lightly. Anything can happen. And that like legally the birth mother has 48 hours after giving birth to change her mind. And so she was like, you have to really surrender all of this, not get attached to this child. Yeah. Until it's actually yours. And so, when I talked about it with them, they were like, oh, I don't know. And then I brought him home. Yeah. And it was like instant love. Yeah. Like they are obsessed. The kid's not going to walk because there's always someone wanting to hold him. And he is such a ham because I think he always has someone to talk to right now. Yeah. And when you're gone, he's just like, excuse me. Adopted, needs attention, needs love, So that was kind of my experience, and I'm the first in my family to adopt. Mm-hmm. And so that was like very, very different as well. And Max is white, and my husband and I are interracial. He's white, he's Irish and German. I'm Vietnamese. And so again, my family is like, well, then we're going to teach him Vietnamese. I was like, have at it. Yeah. That's great. That's great that he's going to be bilingual. And and they're like, we're going to teach him to eat fish sauce. Sure. And rice and all. I was like, I think he's going to love that. I think he's good. Like, so they've like totally embraced him and is so obsessed with him right now. I wish people knew, like, because he's adopted, there is this automatic overflowing of love for him from everyone in our community.
From all sides.
Everyone.
Friends, family, everybody.
Holy cow.
People you haven't talked to in a long time. Like, if you talk about it, they'll like message you like, hey, and the outpouring of love is amazing.
It's this, we want you to know, little child, that you are wanted and loved and special. Yeah. And your adoption just makes you extra special. Yeah. There's this like overcompensation of love. Yeah. I don't know.
It's beautiful to you. See it in like your friends and your family. Like you almost love them more because you see how much they love this child.
Yeah.
And it's kind of like a no-brainer, right? Like if they're of yours biologically, they're going to love them no matter what. I mean,
Yes.
In most families, unless,
Yes.
but in my family, definitely. And,
Yeah.
but then, so it almost expands your love for other people too, because you can see how far their love stretches. Because my friends and my family too just embrace Valentina, and they love her as we love her. And,
Yeah.
it's not like, well, we're going to love this one differently because they came here different, they're just like, hey, where's Valentina? So yeah. Love everywhere. Love fest.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. And for my son's birth parents, he has wonderful birth parents, and they're local, which makes it so easy to get in touch with them and just, drive over or something like that. And it was like an instant new family.
Yeah.
And I think that's so cool.
Yeah.
And again, that's like, you did such a great job in like kind of preparing me for some of the steps that's going to happen with adoption. But until you're in it, the experience is emotional, it's psychological, it's physical.
It's such a roller coaster.
It's everything.
Yeah.
And everything. And there's so many things that I didn't think about. The dynamic that would change between me and my husband. It's, Max is our first.
Yeah.
And having a first adopted child, you are an instant parent overnight.
Yeah.
You did not get 9 months to prepare.
Right.
Prepare. And so it shifts your world. It changes everything. And so adoption, I can't think of anything more beautiful and more privileged to be a part of.
Yeah. People ask me like if I have any regrets. What are your regrets about? You have any regrets about this? I think I tell them my only regret was that I didn't do it sooner.
Yeah.
Yeah. That I hadn't tried. But I mean, if I had tried sooner, it wouldn't have been Valentina. And that's it's important to me that's her, because she was meant to be with us. So
yeah.
But yeah, I love that. I mean, and everybody's adoption story is different, right? Like, we have very different stories, you and I, but then we share a lot of commonalities. And as our kids grow up, they're going to have some commonalities too. And yeah, these other families become your family.
Yeah.
And it's amazing. I mean, it's crazy.
Mm-hmm.
It's super duper crazy, but it's amazing. And it's worth it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What would you say, as we wrap up, what would you say to women out there that have an unplanned pregnancy or a pregnancy they're just not ready for? What would you like to say to them to encourage them that adoption should be on the table as something they should look at? Like, what would you like to say?
I would like to say, well, you're already a mother. So when you become pregnant, that's you're a mother. And as someone who's carried a child, and also someone who's raising a child that's not biologically theirs, but very much theirs.
Yeah.
That just the best thing you can do for your child is to love them and to make the best possible choices for them. Whether that means that you place them in somebody else's care. And also, I mean, there was so much control that our birth mother had. She got to pick, right? She got to choose from different families. She got to know us first. She got to see what the family would look like. And so I think the way adoption is portrayed sometimes, it's not always that way. It's not like you just drop your baby off. And I mean, there's a lot, the ball is absolutely in their court. They get to pick the family the child would be in. They get to pick the parents. They get to envision how that life would be. That it is a very loving choice. I can't speak for every child. I mean, I've spoken to some adult adoptees that say, they don't resent their birth parents. They absolutely love the family that they grew up in. I think the choices you have to make for your child, they start from day one when you see the test. And that this, however you parent, whether it's with you or with somebody else, because our birth mother is still a part of her baby's life, as is yours. It could, whatever your family decides to look like, you're being a loving mother. And being a mother comes with very difficult choices. Very, very difficult choices, whether you mother your own child or place them with somebody else to be raised. So, but as long as the choices that you make are with love and with your child's best interest at heart, because trust me, when my kids if I gave my kids everything they wanted, I would not be a good mother.
Disaster.
I would not be a good mother. And I deny them a lot. But then, ultimately the choices we make as parents are for the betterment of our children and to give our child a loving, stable home and to let them know that from the day one that they were loved is a precious, precious gift, no matter what that looks like.
Yeah. So, yeah. Thank you. That's so beautiful. And thank you for your time. Yeah. And thank you for leaving your babies to be here with me today.
Thanks, Mark, for watching them.
Well, we'll definitely, for listeners out there that whatever stage of life you're in, if you're thinking of children, wanting to have children, if you can't have children, if you're thinking of putting your child up for adoption, I hope this episode has helped you kind of get a perspective from two adoptive parents, like parents that have adopted children, and how grateful we are to have that opportunity to do this. It's an honor and a blessing, and we can't imagine our children not being in our lives now, as sleep deprived as I am. But if you're listening out there, if you know folks that need to hear our story, please share this episode and hopefully inspire you to talk more about adoption, make adoption more available to people, and possibly, if this is something you're thinking about, here at 3W, we really, really want to welcome this opportunity and this conversation. So make an appointment with our medical provider, but also I'm here if you ever want to talk about my experience as adoption. I know that my son's birth mother is also very, very open to sharing her experience and her story as someone that adopted their child to me. So if you ever wanted to just talk about it, we're here for you, and we're part of your community, and we really encourage you to really exhaust every option out there before any big major decisions, So thank you so very much for tuning in, for listening to our story. I'm sure I'm going to have Anna back. Actually, I really want to have Mark from his perspective.
He'd be fun.
As a guy, how adoption affected him. So so we're going to do that. So stay tuned, stay in touch, and please like and share these episodes, and feel free to reach out to us for any questions. So thank you again for listening to Wellness Wednesday. This is Helen and Anna. Thank you so much, Anna.
Thanks.
For more information about 3W, please visit our website at 3wmedical.org. That's the number 3, the letter W, medical.org. From there, you can learn more information about the services we provide, book an appointment, or make a donation if you'd like to support our mission. You can also call our office at 206-588-0311. That's 206-588-0311. If you like this episode, please share it with others and consider subscribing on your favorite podcast platform so you never miss an episode. Thank you so much for listening, and until next time, stay healthy and be well.